What is going on, guys? Welcome back to another Detroit Lions video. Now, if you are somebody that watches a lot of the Detroit Lions press conferences and post games where they interview the players and coaches about how the game went, the past day or whenever the game was played, you will have likely heard or seen this clip / quote from Matt Patricia.
Michael Rothstein.
Yeah, hey Matt, this is your 14th loss in the last 16 games. Why should people still believe that you're the right coach to turn this around?
Obviously, Mike, that's a, hard question. Obviously, we just lost to the Saints. Let's just give them credit for this game. They played extremely well, and I know we got a lot of work to do. Certainly, I think when I came to Detroit, there was a lot of work to do, and that's what we're trying to do.
Now, this quote has caused a lot of controversy between former Lions players, the fans, the media, and everybody that covers the Detroit Lions. In this video today, I want to talk about this quote, talk about, what Matt Patricia is talking about, talk about what work Matt Patricia has done on this team so far, and just kind of talk about Matt Patricia's stance and his situation as of right now. Now, before we do get into the video, if you are new to the channel and are enjoying the content, consider liking the videos and subscribing to the channel, as it takes only 2 seconds out of your day to do so, and it would help the channel out a lot. So if you could do that, I would be greatly appreciative. But with all that being said, let's get into talking about Matt Patricia and the work that he has done to this Detroit Lions team. Now, this quote from Matt Patricia has kind of backfired on him, and a lot of former players are starting to take some shots at Matt Patricia and are starting to, stand up and say he is not the guy, and starting to kind of backlash against Matt Patricia. And the best example of this would be Dan Orlovsky, who was the backup quarterback under Jim Caldwell. When Jim Caldwell was here, he was the backup quarterback to Matthew Stafford, and he had a couple choice words for Matt Patricia.
I forgot that there were players on those teams before he got there. And we're going to come to Coach Caldwell's back, one, because it's the truth, and two, because we have immense respect for Coach Caldwell. First of all, we were 11-5 in 2014 and a really good football team. 2015, we go 7-9. It's because we turned the football over. But the last 8 games, we were 7-1. So flipped our season around. The next 2 years, we're 9-7. And I believe in week 17, we were playing Green Bay in both years for a chance to win the division. Okay, so to come in and say that you had a lot of work to do is completely false. It's a bunch of trash, because that wasn't the case in Detroit. We were a good football team. Matthew Stafford was playing as good as he has in his career. That was because of Coach Caldwell. And we were an organization that was ascending. He was building. And you know what? Another thing, Z? Yeah. The culture was amazing. The culture was fantastic. So
now, Dan Orlovsky is not the only former player that has had some choice words for Matt Patricia, as I saw a lot from Glover Quinn yesterday, where he was taking some shots at Matt Patricia, along with a couple other former Detroit Lions that they can't believe that Matt Patricia would say such a thing and point fingers at a coach that led the Lions to one of their most successful tenures, one of their most successful eras since the early 90s. Now, when Jim Caldwell was here, he was not perfect. By no means was Jim Caldwell a perfect coach. By no means was this team a Super Bowl contender, but they were a very, very good football team. They won, 9 games on average every single season. They went to the playoffs 2 out of the 4 years that Caldwell was here, and this team was a winning franchise once again, for the first time in a very, very long time. The early 2000s, actually throughout the entirety of the 2000s and even the early 2010s, this Detroit Lions squad was not a very good one. This Detroit Lions squad lost a lot of games. They were the first team to ever go 0-16. They didn't win a lot of football games. They didn't have a good culture. They didn't have a winning culture, and they just were not winning football games. However, that changed when Jim Caldwell showed up. Jim Caldwell got here in the 2014 season, the 2013 offseason. His first season coaching was that 2014 season. And in that first season, they went 11-5 and made the playoffs, only 1 game back from the NFC North crown. And they should have won that playoff game if it wasn't for a suspect pass interference call that got picked up. And everybody knows the situation, and that, everybody knows that situation. So I'm not going to dwell on that. But, that was a great thing to see by the Detroit Lions. And Jim Caldwell came in and hit the ground running. Jim Caldwell was a really good coach for the Lions. He got this team ready. He got this team ready on Sundays, and this team wanted to win. They wanted to play, and they wanted to win for their coach in Jim Caldwell. Jim Caldwell only had 1 losing season in his entire tenure with the Detroit Lions, which is really, really tough to do as a Lions head coach, as many former coaches and even Matt Patricia can attest to. Jim Caldwell only had one losing season, and in that losing season, they only went 7-9 and actually ended up winning 7 of their last 8 games to finish that season 7-9. So they had some problems early, and they figured it out later to, fix it, and they got back on track near the end of the season. Jim Caldwell has the highest winning percentage out of any coach in Lions history. I can't remember the exact number, but Jim Caldwell has the highest winning percentage out of any head coach in Lions franchise history, and Matt Patricia is the 3rd worst. So, you have a guy in Matt Patricia who is quoting and saying that this team needed a lot of work when he got here, when that is just not the case. And Jim Caldwell proved that. Jim Caldwell proved that with this team, with this Detroit Lions team in the 2017 season, they went 9-7. They went into week 17 competing for the NFC North title. They should have won that Falcons game earlier in the season that would have put them at 10-6 and would have helped them win that title even sooner. They went into that season with playoff aspirations. They went into that season, expecting to make the playoffs because that was the culture that Jim Caldwell had. And, they went into that season as a team that nobody wanted to play. Nobody wanted to see the Detroit Lions on their schedule because they knew the Lions, while not being necessarily a Super Bowl contender, were definitely a threat to beat anybody on any given Sunday. And they were definitely going to go at least 8-8, 9-7, maybe even 10-6 if they were having a really, really good season. Now, Jim Caldwell, when he was here, as I said earlier, was by no means perfect. By no means was Jim Caldwell a great coach. By no means was he a top 5 coach in the NFL, but he was a winning coach. And that is something that the Detroit Lions haven't had in a very, very long time. Averaging 9 wins a season in Detroit is not easy to do, but Jim Caldwell did it. Jim Caldwell built up a winning football team. Jim Caldwell built up a great locker room culture where all the players loved him, all the players loved each other, all the players wanted to win for each other and for their coach and for their organization. And Jim Caldwell built that culture. Jim Caldwell had a culture set in place built on, he was a player's coach. He loved his players. The players loved him. They wanted to go out and win for him, and they never, ever gave up. Even if they were down like 40-7, they never gave up, and they always kept fighting back. They always kept giving everything they had, 100% effort on every single play of every single snap that Jim Caldwell was the head coach, because that was the culture Jim Caldwell built. He built a culture based on hard work. He built a culture based on love and the fact that these players wanted to play for each other, and they just wanted to win for each other. And, that's a great thing to have. That is a good culture to have. We see that with the Seahawks, where Pete Carroll is a player's coach, and the players love playing for him. The players want to win for him. They want to win for each other, and that has been super successful in Seattle. We see that around the NFL now. We see that around the NFL today, as there are multiple coaches that are players coaches that the players love, the players want to play for, the players want to win for. Andy Reid, Pete Carroll. There are guys all over the NFL that are having success that are players coaches and have that culture based on, your players love you, you love your players, and they want to go play and they want to go win for each other. And that is the culture Jim Caldwell had, especially in a locker room where everybody was close, everybody was tight-knit, and every single person on that 2017 team knew exactly what the other player was going to do, knew exactly how the other player was going to act, and knew that that player next to them was going to give 100% for every single snap that they were on the field. And don't get me wrong, this team had holes. This team definitely needed some work after the 2017 season. Obviously being 9-7, obviously missing the playoffs by a game, obviously not being able to win a division title in that season. That team definitely needed some work, but every team needs work in the offseason. Like every single team in the NFL, whether you be the number 1 seed and you win the Super Bowl or you get the number 1 overall pick, every single team in an offseason, the offseason is designed for you to fill holes. The offseason is designed for every team to get better, and that is exactly what every team needs to be doing. Every single team in the offseason needs to look at it and say, okay, we need to get better. Whether we won the Super Bowl last year by a score of 100-0 or we lost every single game last year, every team needs to improve. Every single team's goal in the offseason is to prove and to get some work done and make the team better than it was a year ago. So from that standpoint, I understand what Matt Patricia is saying, but to say that this team had a lot of work to do is just untrue. This team was a winning football team. This team had a good culture. This team was a team that nobody wanted to play, especially late in the season. This is a team that, when fans saw the Detroit Lions on their schedule in the Jim Caldwell era, they did not want to play the Lions because they saw that Detroit Lions team and they thought this is a winnable game for sure, but we're going to have to play really good football. We're going to have to play, we're going to have to come up with a good game plan. We're going to have to take away what they do well. And even then, there's a good chance that this Detroit Lions team could definitely definitely come in and beat us. Like, nobody felt safe playing the Lions under Caldwell's reign. But then Matt Patricia got here, and he started doing his work. He felt that there was a lot of work to do in Detroit, so he got to work early. He started trading Darius Slay and Quandre Diggs, and he got rid of all the talent on this team. He got rid of all the playmakers. He forged rifts between himself and the players immediately. Like, he just came in and took everything Jim Caldwell had that was working. He took the winning, he took the culture, he took the love that the players had for each other and their coach. He ripped it all up and threw it away. He did not want that kind of culture. He wanted a Belichick culture. He wanted something resembling the Patriots, which I don't know when NFL teams are going to learn. Patriots systems don't work without Bill Belichick. That is the only common denominator in every single one of these scenarios. Bill Belichick is the only one that can make that culture work, because Bill Belichick is the only coach that has won in that system. So for Matt Patricia to come in and take out that culture that the Lions had built over the past 4 years, that culture based on love, that culture based on the fact that they wanted to go out and win for their coach every single play, every single snap, every single day of every single season, they took that idea and threw it out the window because Matt Patricia came in and started cussing out his players. Matt Patricia came in and just, as soon as he got there, forged a rift between his players that some of them were never able to recover from. A great example of that being Darius Slay. There's a reason that Darius Slay wanted to trade after Jim Caldwell was gone. There's a reason that Quandre Diggs got cut. There's a reason that they traded Quandre Diggs after Patricia got here. There's a reason Snacks didn't want to be in Detroit. There is a reason that these players didn't want to be here, and there's a reason that new players don't want to come to Detroit unless they are former Patriots, because they don't want to deal with Matt Patricia. They saw what was working in Detroit, and they know that what Matt Patricia is doing is only taking this team backwards. Has Matt Patricia done work on this team? Has Matt Patricia done some work to this team? Absolutely. But it's work in the wrong direction. Matt Patricia has taken a team that was 9-7, that nobody wanted to play on any Sunday. Nobody ever felt comfortable playing the Detroit Lions. Matt Patricia took a team that was vying for the playoffs on 3 of the 4 years that Caldwell was here, and he took them from a playoff contender, a playoff threat, down to a laughingstock of the NFL. The Lions are now once again viewed as that really bad team. They're once again viewed as the little brother in the NFC North. They're once again viewed as the clowns of the NFL because they just can't win a football game under Matt Patricia, and that falls on Matt Patricia. Matt Patricia has had 3 years to build this team up, but instead he's torn this team down. He's tried to make it the New England Patriots. He's tried to make it a Belichick system. He's tried to bring in players that he's coached before, and that doesn't work. That never ever has worked in any situation, and it's definitely not going to work in Detroit, as we've seen over the past 3 years. Matt Patricia just, his philosophy and his ideas just don't work here. And for you as a head coach that has the 3rd worst winning percentage in Lions team history, which by the way isn't easy to do because we've had a lot of bad head coaches, for you to be statistically the 3rd worst coach in franchise history and point fingers and say that the roster Jim Caldwell left you, who by the way is the winningest head coach in Lions football history, for you to point at that guy who is the highest winning percentage in franchise history and say that guy didn't build a team that I could take over and win with is absolutely beyond fair. It's just not okay to say. It's beyond untrue. It's just, you cannot point fingers. I've never ever seen a head coach after losing a football game point out to a previous team from before he was here and say, well, that team wasn't good enough when I got here. That team needed work. That team needed to get better, and that's what we're trying to do. You can't say that as a head coach unless you are actively getting better. If Matt Patricia came here and we were a 5-win team, then he can say that. But we were not a 5-win team. We were a playoff contender, and Matt Patricia was brought here to make us a Super Bowl contender. And instead of taking us 2 steps forward to that Super Bowl contention, he's taken us 5 steps back to the cellar of the NFL and made us the laughingstock of the league once again. Jim Caldwell got rid of that narrative. Jim Caldwell got rid of that narrative that the same old Lions. Jim Caldwell got rid of that narrative that the Lions were an easy team that you could walk in and beat. Jim Caldwell made everybody forget about 0-16, and the only thing Matt Patricia has worked on so far in Detroit is restoring that reputation that the Lions are a bad franchise. Restoring that reputation that the Lions are the same old Lions once again. And, Patricia has definitely done some work on this team. The only problem is the work that Matt Patricia has done has been in the opposite opposite direction. Matt Patricia was brought here to take the Lions a step in the right direction. Matt Patricia was brought here to put that team from 9-7 to 11-5 and win the division. Matt Patricia was brought here to make us from playoff contenders to Super Bowl contenders. We needed that one more step. We were right there. All we needed was 1 or 2 more steps forward, and instead, Matt Patricia got blindfolded, turned around, and took 5 and 6 steps backwards. Like, you just can't say that. You cannot, in a press conference after losing a game in the fashion that they just lost to the Saints, you cannot sit there and say, well, this team needed work when I got here, and that's why I deserve to still be here, because I'm still building it up. This team did not need to be rebuilt. This team did not need to be built up. This team needed to plug a few holes in that 2017 offseason, and they needed a head coach to put them over the top. They needed a play caller to put them over the top. They needed that elite defense back to put them over the top, and that is what Matt Patricia was brought here to do. And that is exactly what didn't happen. For Matt Patricia to sit up there on the podium and when people were asking him, should the Lions fans have faith in you? Why are you the right guy to lead this team? And if your only response is, well, this team wasn't good enough when I got here, that is not an okay answer. That is not something that you can say as a head coach. And, that arrogance, that refusal to take fault for anything is why I don't think Matt Patricia deserves to be here anymore. And Matt Patricia can stay for the rest of the season to set our next future head coach up in the best situation possible in the draft, but Matt Patricia cannot stay here after this season. I have never once in my time watching football seen a head coach blame the previous head coach for their faults. I've never once seen a head coach in Matt Patricia drive so many rifts between players, especially especially before he came in. This unit and this team was so closely knit and so closely bonded. I've never ever seen a head coach come in and destroy a team and take a team so far backwards in so little time as I've seen Matt Patricia do. So at the end of the day, Matt Patricia's comments are unnecessary. They're unrealistic. They're just flat out not true. And when you are a head coach, you cannot blame a previous head coach. That's like Jim Caldwell coming in, right, and saying, oh, well, the guy that went 0-16, he didn't build a good team for me to take over. Like, what Matt Patricia did, or what Jim Caldwell did, had zero effect on how Matt Patricia has built this team. Has zero to do with how Matt Patricia is coaching. And for Matt Patricia to sit there and blame Jim Caldwell pretty much, he didn't directly say it, but pretty much indirectly blame Jim Caldwell for his failures in the NFL is just flat out not acceptable for a head coach. And, that's just the final straw for me. I was done with Patricia, but when he's making comments like that, that just pushes me over the edge, and that's unacceptable for a head coach to do. Now, with all that being said, that is all I got for you guys today. Hope you guys enjoyed the video and an absolutely fantastic rest of your day. If you are new to the channel, as I said, please considering taking those 2 seconds it does take to hit that subscribe and those like buttons. It helps me push the content out to more Lions fans. It helps me spread the channel and grow, and I love doing this, so the more you could help me out, the greater this channel can become and the better the content can be. But with all that being said, that's all I got for you guys today. Hope you guys enjoyed the video and have an absolutely fantastic rest of your day. If there is Lions news before tomorrow, then I will obviously make a video letting every single person know. But if there is no Lions news, then that is all I got for you guys right now. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I will see you all tomorrow with more Lions content. Bye, guys.